Donald Trump lost 2 debates to me in 2020. And since then, he hadn't shown up for debate. Now he's acting like he wants to debate me again. Well, make my day, pal. I'll even do it twice. So let's pick the dates, Donald. I hear you're free on Wednesdays.
Well, the race for the White House is about to pick up speed. That was U.S. President Joe Biden throwing down the challenge to Donald Trump to meet him on stage for 2 live televised debates. The Biden team is clearly trying to get under the skin of the MAGA candidate. The jibe that you just heard there about Trump being free on Wednesdays, well, Wednesday is the only weekday that Trump gets off from his hush money trial taking place right now in New York. And it wasn't long before 2 rivals started trading barbs on social media about the debate. Trump on his Truth Social platform posting, "Just tell me when, I'll be there. Let's get ready to rumble." And then the network offers came rolling in. Joe Biden agreeing to a debate on CNN for June 27th and on ABC for September 10th. His Republican challenger then accepting both the invitations and the dates in a style that can only be described as Trumpian. Well, for more on this, I want to bring in Ethan Bearman. He's an adjunct law professor and political commentator based in Los Angeles, a familiar face to our viewers. Ethan, good to see you. Before we talk about this debate, or the debates and the arguments for and against, what do you make of Biden's campaign style this time around? I mean, making fun of Trump and trying to get under his skin.
Well, I think it's actually a smart move on President Biden's part, because this ultimately is going to come down to President Biden needing to remind people of what he's actually accomplished, which is quite a lot over the last several years. And the key difference with Donald Trump being the personality style of each of them being so dramatically different. So I think this was a smart move on President Biden's part. And we're going to see how well it plays out, though.
Well, let me ask you, Ethan, does Joe Biden, does he even have to debate Donald Trump? You say he needs to remind people of what he's done. There are plenty of pundits in the U.S. who say it's too much of a risk for Biden and that he shouldn't give Trump a platform.
Well, I don't agree with that. I think that's a really interesting take that is not rooted in what are observable facts here, which are, one, first and foremost, President Biden succeeded in, I think, the most important thing coming out of the 2020 and, for that matter, the 2016 presidential debates, which is the microphone will turn off or can be turned off when the time is up. That was a big problem or a big advantage for Donald Trump in 2016 and for President Trump in 2020. So President Biden achieved that. More importantly, though, is he's not a huge self-promoter like Donald Trump is. So people seem to forget about what is going on with President Biden. There's a lot of talk about President Biden's mental facilities, for example. He demonstrated how strong and clear he is at this year's State of the Union address.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. You know, these presidential debates, the ones that have involved Donald Trump, I'm thinking of 2016, 2020, they've never been true portraits in best behavior. So in case your memory is a little foggy, here's a reminder from 2020. Take a look.
Vote now.
You're gonna pack the
Make
court?
sure you, in fact, let people know
He doesn't want
you're a
to answer the
senator.
question.
I'm not going to answer the question
Why
because
wouldn't you answer that
because
question?
the question
you want to put a
is
lot of
the
new
question
Supreme Court
is
justice,
the
radical
question,
left.
Will you
Who
shut
is
up,
on,
man?
Listen, who is on your list, Joe?
This
Who's
is
on your
so
list?
right.
Gentlemen, I think
This
we've
is
ended
so
this.
He's going to pack the
unprecedented.
court.
We have
Not gonna give.
All right, so we all remember that, right, Ethan? I mean, and as a result of episodes like that, the Biden team wants debate rules in place this year to minimize interruptions from Trump, cutting his mic when it's not his turn to speak, for example. Will the debate moderators, will they be able to control Trump?
I mean, that's yet to be found out, of course, coming up a little bit later. But really importantly, isn't just cutting off the microphone. I mean, I think that's a critical point. But also what President Biden successfully got accomplished here, if Donald Trump doesn't withdraw at the last minute, of course, is that there will be no live audience. Donald Trump loves feeding off of that live audience and getting the feedback and the reaction. He's a classic entertainer that way, in that he feeds off the energy of the crowd in front of him. There's going to be no crowd. There's going to be no town hall. This is not like the traditional presidential debates that have been in place essentially for the last 35 years or so, since 1976 is really when it was standardized.
Yeah, and I want to ask you about that in just a moment. But first, Donald Trump, he refused to debate his Republican primary challengers, and that worked for him. Why do you think then he's so keen to debate Biden?
Oh, I think that's ego more than anything. I really believe in his mind, and by the way, we have evidence to support this with his voting base. They love to see him speak live. He believes that he can, as you saw in that Truth Social post of his, he believes that he can destroy President Biden in a debate. And I just don't agree with him, but that's what's going on in his mind from what we can tell.
I want to ask you about the timing of these two debates. The first will be in June, and that will be before the Democratic or the Republican national conventions. And then the second in September comes before most states begin early voting. Is that better than what we've had in the past? Because the past, we've seen them taking place around October.
I think there's one strong logical argument for the debates to be earlier this year, and that is, in light of what happened with COVID, many states now are doing early voting starting as early as September 20th. Mm-hmm. So, having the debates prior to people beginning to cast their ballots in the United States is a very good idea. Once I've cast my ballot and something happens in a debate that might change my mind, which I'm not sure it would, but if that were to happen after I've already cast my ballot, I think that would be very disappointing. So preceding September 20th with the debates, I think, is a logical and correct decision.
Okay. Well, I know where you and where I and most of my colleagues will be on the evening of June 27th, that's for sure, right in front of the TV. Ethan Bearman, as always, Ethan, good talking with you. We appreciate your analysis. Thank you.
Thanks so much for having me back, Brent. Appreciate it.